You know what? Well, first, yeah, welcome back, everybody. Thanks. Appreciate it. Do you, what's the worst beer you've ever had?
The worst beer I've ever had.
I already know mine as I got it on the top of my mind.
I had it when I was over in Italy. I had this Spaten.
So someone spit in your beer.
No, yeah. That's what it's called. There's an actual brand, and it has like a little shovel. It's called Spaten. But the beer, I think, is good. But they served it to me, this specific place served it to me like almost hot.
Ew, yes, Spaten beer.
Yeah. So it was I think it would have been a good beer, but dude, no beer is good when it's hot.
You know what beer is disgusting, hot and cold? Old English.
Oh, yeah. 8-ball.
Dude.
Got to get some 40s, y'all.
Dude, Old English is just
it's
disgusting.
Like, you go like this.
Yeah, and they spell Old English with the E on the
end.
end.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Oh, man. I remember I would be in Philly, and I go to like a corner store, and I mean, like, if I wanted to pay 40 cents or whatever it was for it, you know, it's like
Mickey's
a penny.
There's a lot of those.
Penny per milliliter.
So let me tell you my Old English story. This is funny. So I was stationed in NAS Memphis for a while, a Naval Air Station in the Marines.
What do you mean station? So you were a Marine?
Yeah,
I don't know if
I So I was a Marine, but on the air wing side. So I had to go to this one school in Memphis, and we used to go to Bill Street, which is, you know, because of course you're a young Marine, so you want to party and drink. So, and it was, you know, the Blue Street, and they would block it off every weekend, and they just had like B.B. King and all this great music. And they had this underground club that we were going to because I like EDM.
It's a cool looking street.
And they we would take two. We would buy 4 total Old English because this is what the guy would do, bro. And so I would just chug them down, but not even pay attention. But we had this one store because the key is to get it. You got to get it super cold.
Yeah,
like almost where it's chilled, and then it doesn't taste as bad. But we'd literally drink 2 of those right before we went into the club. And then you don't have to drink that much.
No, you don't have to waste your money at the club.
Yeah, because you're already like super
He has to
buzzed.
get sauced before you go in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
The reason I bring up Old English and like shit beer is because the idea we have of God
it's like shit beer.
is like shit beer.
Oh, this is funny. I love where we're going with this.
There's 2 aspects of it, right? It's real cheap. Anybody can make their own cheap beer. Okay. You know, it has a nice color from the outside, but when you start to sip it, tastes terrible. Also doesn't make you feel good. And the other metaphor I like to use with the Old English is going back to the etymology of the word God. Right. So when I look at the word God, it comes from a Germanic root, a High Germanic root called goat, G-O-T. Currently, right now, it's written as G-O-T-T, but the previous version, G-O-T. And if we look at the origins of this word in its initial use and description of people that were described as gods, something interesting is happening here. Is that why is it that you would have emperors or kings of a land and, you know, they would still have to seek advice from these other individuals around them? Now, in no way, shape, or form, I guess in maybe a couple shapes or forms, when people think about a god, they think, you know, it's this old dude or thing or like lack of body, whatever it might be, floating up in the sky.
Right.
It's always above, looking down on you. Just has this like idea of physical hierarchy. You know, and sometimes, you know, they would take on specific forms. Like they would say, oh, the god would come down and take on the form of, you know, Krishna or Brahma, right? They, you know, would take on all these different...
Right.
It's the same thing taking on new forms. Well, if you look at a lot of the historical text around kings having conversations with a god or many gods, they were described as human beings. They looked like human beings. No differentiating factor between you or I or anybody else. Beyond the physical, it was the idea that they were coined a god because they had a superb level of intelligence, knowledge, understanding of the spirit and creational laws,
Right.
and on top of that, consciousness-based powers. Maybe they practice telepathy. People that aren't gods, even in India, certain gurus are, very telepathic. Everybody's telepathic in a sense. They just haven't practiced it. But these are people that have practiced these things and mastered them.
Well, I mean, as we move up the densities, that will be the way that we speak.
That's it's the way that we speak. That'll be
Right.
the way we converse. So imagine somebody comes around and they're walking around on Earth amongst people that are of maybe a third density,
Mm-hmm.
and they do have telepathic powers. You are feeling and reading the thoughts of another. You have deep knowledge or wisdom, like you are a walking encyclopedia. And you have the ability to understand science much better than other people at that time, a better way of explaining the world. People are going to be like, this person is so knowing, they must be a god. There's a reason why these kings and queens and priests would go and seek advice from these individuals. And these gods didn't hold positions of power for a majority of the time.
Right.
The kings and queens had the majority of the power. The god knew that it was not necessary. But this
god,
god...
the god was the use of, he was almost kind of like their ability to be able to usurp authority.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's like, what's the point of being authoritative? I have, such a body of wisdom over here. It is unwise to act like this.
God spoke to me
Yeah.
as the king and told me I need to do this.
Listen, it was just a human being, a quite advanced one,
Mm-hmm.
but in the historical record, and that was later changed in its use, right? To where like, there's the God, God rules over everything. So if that were the case, okay, if God truly ruled over everything, you wouldn't have all these different types of religions.
Mm-mm.
You would have the religion of God. Does that make sense?
So whenever you say the religion of God,
Mm-hmm.
so, when we look at our conceptions of God, that's where, with cultural interpretation, so that's where you're getting into, not that God in and of itself, because there's so many different labels of God. So is it the conception is what you're talking about? Or is it like that false belief?
So people believe that there is something that is controlling of their life. There is something that determines their destiny and the structure of this world. And
Like a higher power.
A higher power that they coin as God. There is creation, and then there are gods that are in creation. They are creatures of creation. The Vedic
So
text,
let's define the proper definition of God. Because you just said there's
A
gods
god.
in creation. So now
Yeah.
my mind is running wild and I'm thinking of all these different types of gods.
Yeah, that's correct. A god is a creature of creation. A god is something that has a high amount of wisdom, spiritual understanding, and consciousness-based powers.
So when I'm thinking of Buddha or I'm thinking of Jesus, those are people that immediately pop in my head.
Yes.
So those are gods.
Yeah. They are not God in the grand sense of controlling everything.
Right.
No god controls everything.
Because I look at them as having wisdom.
People think that God is...
But
they
what
equate-
about worshiping gods?
Here's the problem. That idea of worship, okay? Because people are equating God with creation. That's not what God is. God has nothing to do with that. God is a definition of the characteristics of a human being. That's what it is.
Of having wisdom and
Wisdom, great understanding of creational laws,
higher
the
elevated
power of the
consciousness.
spirit, and higher elevated consciousness.
So like if we had
Consciousness-based powers.
aliens come down and they're sixth density or whatever,
Yes.
then we could call them God.
You could call them a god.
Right.
Otherwise known in the earlier Hebrew understanding of a Yahweh.
Right.
And a Yahweh comes from an earlier word, a Proto-Germanic word, an old Celt word called Isvich. And Isvich, in the definition of that, is a king of wisdom or a queen of wisdom. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's never
what the
gender
sex
doesn't
or
matter,
gender, whatever it is.
We make it all masculine all the time, but that's just our stupid culture.
Well, that's what religion does, right?
Right.
And it gives this idea of masculinity, power, God, old,
Right.
Vengeful thing that asks you what kind of a God of creation. So, God, this is just ridiculous. When you think of the word of creation, right? Does that give you the idea of destroying things? When I ask you to create, does that mean just destroy things? No, it's the opposite of the word. It fundamentally, the logic does not align. So when you say God is creation, God is the universe, that can't logically be true, because creation does not destroy its own creations. It's creating all the time. It's not destroying.
Yeah, I think with Christianity and Judaism, especially whenever you look at, like, it says God created the heavens and the earth, and I'd have to look up that Hebrew word God in that particular and see what it is.
The Hebrew word God comes from the term Yahweh, which is also Proto-Germanic before that point. That is the word Isvich. That needs to be clear. Because when people think Yahweh, like God, God did this, God did that. If you really look at the Hebrew text, it's a plural.
Right,
there were many gods.
Yeah.
There was actually a council of gods.
Because I know, like, Elohim is another word for God, and that's like
Elo,
a plural.
Elo is a term for God. Elohim is the plural of gods. Okay, so when you look at that text, when they talk about the Elohim, it's a council of these gods, a council of these highly evolved members of spirit, wisdom, and consciousness-based powers. And when they came down, they were coined as Isviches. They were coined as Yahwehs.
See, and I think we need to look this up, but I think in Genesis 1:1, when it said God created the heavens and the earth, I think they're using Elohim there.
They are using Elohim.
Yeah.
So Genesis, tell me what the thing is.
Just Genesis 1:1.
I'm very bad.
Just type in Hebrew word God, Genesis 1:1.
Genesis.
It'll pop up.
Right here.
We need a Jamie.
I'm fucking on the thing right here, dude. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. So that's the current.
Yeah,
that's the new international version. Hold on a second.
Yeah, but in Hebrew, that God word is because there's different forms of God.
Dude, they got 1,000 versions on here. Hold on a second.
Yeah, just let's see if I can find it too. Because this is going to be really interesting. Because this is for majority of the world here. We're fixing to blow people's minds.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that this stuff's abundantly clear. Gosh, there's so much stuff on the Bible. It's like ridiculous.
Well, yeah. I mean, how many
complete
centuries?
Jewish Bible right here. Read the full chapter.
Hebrew Bible. I'm looking at the.
I want the OG Hebrew thing.
You can go to type this in.
Yeah.
This is, you're gonna love this. You've never seen this before.
No,
this is really cool. Type in Strong's, like strong.
Oh,
Strong's Concordance.
Yeah, I this guy Strong's Concordance. He did a lot of stuff.
A long time, and he takes each
section of the
and then
Bible
type in
goes
Genesis
back.
1:1 in Strong's Concordance, and you can hover over it, and it'll show if it's Elohim or, which I'm almost positive that it is. I'm almost positive that it's Elohim.
Yeah. So I just want to be done with this. Genesis 1:1. Everybody's being patient.
Oh yeah, well they can do this too.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you go do it. 1:7, 1:6, 5.
It actually says in the that there are 7 words for God in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm on just like a
Yeah,
shit
it is.
website. Yeah.
So Hebrew text, it says Elohim, and it has the Hebrew, the generic word for God, God of Israel, God of nations, whatever, according to. But it is, so Elohim is this plural. So it says when God created the heavens and the earth, very first verse in the Bible.
Yeah.
That's when you open the Bible, that's the first thing you read.
Mm-hmm.
That is a plurality of gods that created the heavens and the earth.
Yeah. So what they're stating is that, and this is also an insane comment, is that these elevated human beings or extraterrestrials, this council, right, of gods, created heaven and the earth. They did not. They might have done some genetic engineering or whatever a conspiracy might say, but creation created itself.
Well, the next verse, this is interesting because the next verse, and I don't want to get too into the Bible, but this is what I'm telling you.
Yeah, keep
it says
going.
the next verse that says, and the earth
Yeah.
was without form and void. The earth was here.
Yeah.
It was just without form and void. So something had to create that before. So I think they were maybe they were the magicians, if you want to use that word, or the sorcerers that started the evolutionary process.
Well, think about it, right? If you're so evolved, millions, billions of years evolved, your science is absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
You would come down and do genetic engineering. You would come down and plop things on this planet and design it however you want.
Yes. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Right? Now, so I just want to make sure this is clear. If there is God, right, whatever your religion is, okay, that shit religion that's not helping you at all, whatever the term of God is, that couldn't possibly be the God. Because why would all these other religions have their gods? Which would then tell me that all these religions really have no truthful founding. because then it would be the religion of God, which nobody has. It's Confucianism, Buddhism, Brahmanism, Christianity, all those different things.
All of them, yeah.
Everybody has their own God.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what?
Well, the funny part for me, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, do you have a picture of him?
Yeah.
Can you show me what it looks like?
It's so funny how we have to make them supernatural, but we have to make them human-like.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Old man upstairs.
No, but they were human. But then someone takes the idea of let's apply a hierarchy, order, power, all these other things. So they took this idea of a human being that was albeit advanced, very wise and knowing, whether they were one of blue skin, and we did an episode on this with the people of Agartha, right? And over in the northern Nepalese region up there in the Hindu Kush, right? You have those people that are blue, and then you have, Buddha. These were these higher formed, gods. They were very evolved people that came down here and walked around the earth. People are like, holy crap, is this the person who created everything? Well, no, in your localized region, you would see this person as the creator of all. But most of these people didn't have the ability to travel the world, did they? Mm-mm. No, not a chance. Not a freaking chance. Not in that time. Not when the first ideas or conceptions or misuse of the term God was actually starting to flourish around the earth. So when you have a God, it's descriptive of a person that is of a high knowledge, wisdom, spiritual understanding, and consciousness-based power. Your idea of God is completely unfounded in the fact that your God rules all, because if that was true, there would be no other religions.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I like how Aristotle discusses it. He has in his metaphysics, Aristotle discusses the meaning of being as being.
Yeah,
That's what
it just is.
Yeah.
Why would this idea of the totality and, the genesis of everything, of all life, the universe, it is being. It is not a person, because if you think about the structure of this, Jason, how would a person come first before the universe, before an atomic, before an atom, the foundation stones of life? Those things have to precede that, and then something else also had to precede, that idea of a foundation stone. There had to be this idea of infiniteness, right? And Ra talked about creation and that intelligent infinity. This is the progenesis of all those things. The idea of God came after the fact. Like geometry, right? Geometry is a study and measure of the earth and shapes. Those shapes were already there. The earth was already in place. The math to explain it came second. This word God is an explanation of that thing that was before it, where people are saying, oh, this person has this power, let's define it as God. Not God defined this person as God.
Listen to this, Aristotle's complete definition of God. Is in a state of status, untouched by change and imperfection. That's his definition of God.
Well, yeah, so if you reach a state of perfection.
Right, the unmoved mover is what he calls it.
Yeah, because you're unmovable, you're totally wise.
Yeah.
Right? You know what's non-truthful. If you turn that over to what Ross said about distortion, you're undistorted. The truth is immovable, immutable, timeless. So in a great context of the sentence, Aristotle is onto something here, but we got the word God is not the thing that rules over everything. It's just a description of a person who is extremely, extremely advanced.
Yeah, in the Hermetica and the ancient Greek philosophy, even before Aristotle, they have many names. They call it God, Lord, Father. They even have mind. They say it's mind, the creator of the all, the one. They use those. The Hermetic view of the divinity is that it is both the all and the creator of the all. All created things pre-exist in God.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They say that God,
God is the nature of the cosmos.
God is
both
not
the substance for which it proceeds and the governing principle for which it orders in.
Yeah, but the thing is,
that's creation.
That's creation. It's not God.
Right.
God is creation.
So there's a mislabel. They're saying that creation is God.
That's
and then
not
they're
true.
attaching this is the problem
That's
with everything.
Fundamentally untrue.
And then they're attaching however they view their deity of God.
Yes.
They're attaching that into that label of creation.
And
creating a separate.
That's precisely correct.
Because somebody wants to say that there's a designer. If I have a Rolex watch on right now and it took 2 years to make, I want to look at that watch and say there was a lady or a guy that made this watch and it took 2 years to create this watch. There is a master designer behind this watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's it. That logically makes sense to me.
Sure.
You know, that I have to look at creation as having a master designer. You know, I want to pin it down to.
Why does creation have to have the designer?
Well, I know, you know what I'm saying.
Why can't creation
but
just
I'm saying
be
our,
the design?
our yeah, exactly.
What
our
happens,
minds,
dude. But think about design. What has to precede to have design? A thought.
right?
Thought is required before design.
Right.
Thought is required before God. The idea of God, the definition or label of a God. Thought is required before you have atoms, structure, geometry, mathematics, physics, all of those things. Thought is required before that.
And thought creates creation.
That's
because we see
because
that in
creation
law, yeah.
is thought. It's one
Right.
momentous thought.
Right.
That is the key driver of this. So when you see a being that's walking around, that is not creation. It's part and parcel of it. It has characteristics of it.
Yes.
It's highly evolved, but it is not creation itself. It is not truly all-knowing. It can't, because if it was, it would be creation. What's the point of that? There's no point. And if you think about it, if you're part and parcel of creation, creation's walking around you all the time. You just need to recognize it. If you're looking for grand design, look at the way pine needles grow on trees, how an ant chooses to move. Look to nature. Look to the skies to understand creational laws. Do not look to a text where someone defines a person who is highly evolved as a god and then live your life dependent on your association or attachment with this idea of this god.
So what do you think? So when we get into Judaism and we look at Kabbalism, because that's the mystical side of Judaism, Kabbalistic thinkers have it this way, that they believe that all of existence is itself a part of God.
They say it's a part of God.
And that we, our humanity, are unaware of our own inherent godliness and are grappling to come in terms with it.
So the Sumerians
Right.
were the ones that started writing on clay tablets, okay, in cuneiform. Who were the people that had the power? The ones that could read and write, correct? So when you go to disseminate knowledge, if there's this God, who are they talking to first? Who are they speaking with first? The most learned, right?
Yes.
The ones that are leading.
The ones that have the willingness.
Yeah, the ones that have a willingness.
Right.
And so what happens when someone's like, wait a minute, we're the only ones having a conversation with this guy or this girl, whatever it might be. Why don't we just change a couple things here so when this god leaves the area, because it's not bound here, maybe the thing's got a spaceship, bounces in and out, why don't we just change some of the text to say, ooh, creation's a part of this god, and we're the only ones that had a conversation with him. Oh, and we're the only ones that wrote it down. So we're essentially defining the rules of how you interpret God in creation, right? And then what happens when that text gets passed on? It gets adopted by many, many different religions and cultures across the globe. And that evolves into this continuous idea of God. But then what happens when you have this thing that's creating all the time? You got to have an enemy, right? Remember we talked about in the previous episode, myths? Well, that's where the idea of the devil comes from. And this is an old Celt thing too, right? And I've explained this in the past. It comes from the idea of the Tubal. The Tubal was this god who is high in consciousness-based powers and used that for hunting for its current Celt tribe. That's what it did a long, 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 long time ago. And then another individual shows up in honor of this god and calls himself Tebal. And Tebal would wear horns on his head in representation, in respect to this other great hunter. That word, that old Celt word, later adopted into Proto-Germanic and then translated over, became Tufel. Tubal became Tifel, became Tufel. And what that means is devil in German, if you translate that, then adopted by the church at that time. Now you have polarities. Now you have an enemy. Now you can design heaven and hell.
Right.
But if you continue to move back in these words, their origins, their adoption, then you realize where things really sat in their truth, what they truly mean, not what someone tells you what they actually mean. Look at the real historical context of it. Do the translation of the Bible. Look at the word Elohim. It's a plural of gods, of the Elo.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I'm looking at, because I would think Christianity is probably number one. I think Islam's number one, Christianity is number two as far as religions. But when I look at Christianity...
What do you mean by one or two, just so people understand that context?
Well, okay, I think Islam followers,
Thank you.
practices of are no, maybe not practices, but they identify
as.
yeah.
Yeah, so the population of identifiers of a specific
exactly.
religion. Yeah.
So they have the Trinity. So I'm going to read that. It all exists simultaneously and eternally, and you have 3 persons, and you have the Father, the Source, the Eternal Majesty. That's what they call it, the Source. So the Father's the Source. Mm-hmm. You have the Son, the Eternal Logos, or Word, manifested in human form as Jesus. Mm-hmm. And then you have the Holy Spirit, or that Advocate, the one that it appeases, that goes between, that is in you, like your soul, where we get the word pneumonia from, in the Greek, it's what's the Greek word for spirit? Because this will help. There's an explanation here, because I want to blow the Trinity out of the water right now. That's why I'm...
Pneuma.
Yeah, pneuma, where we get pneumonia. But so then we have the Spirit. So here's what's happening.
Where does pneumonia affect you?
Yeah, exactly.
No, where does that affect you?
In the lungs.
In the lungs.
Right.
The idea of life comes from breath. Mm-hmm. So creation is but one giant breath. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, good. There we go. Good job for the Greeks.
And whenever you go back to Genesis and you see as we began to read, like it said that the Holy Spirit moved upon the face of the water, during creation, like this breath moved over, which would make sense. I get in their format, I get that, like if thought and then, these higher intelligent beings are, whisking their little magic brushes around, if you want to think of it like this. And then trees are popping up and shit.
Wow, 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 wow. You know what I mean? Just like going around.
I don't know. They're just thinking it and creating things.
Yeah.
Because Ra talks about that with the pyramids. They thought it and then created the pyramids.
Yeah, because they understand very well that spirit, creation, lies within everything. Animate and inanimate. Every creature, all things and everything.
I love that, yeah.
All and everything.
Yes.
Everything. Think about that.
Yeah, so whenever I'm looking at everything and I'm looking at creation and then I look at religion and all these different forms of their view of God, all you're doing is, in my opinion, and I want to make sure people understand this, all you're doing is eliminating the power that's within you and making it external once again. And so your belief and hope is on this God to save you, to help you, to make sure that you're walking that narrow moral path, instead of allowing the laws of creation to work inside of you that will bring about an organic change, because they are giving you, it's like when you bowl and you're a little kid, you know how you can't get a gutter ball because they put the bumpers in? Those are the laws of creation to me. Yeah. Like you're going to strike at, if the ball's rolling down perfectly in the middle, you're going to get a strike. Yeah. It's just the nature of physics.
Staying in the lane.
Yeah. So so I don't fuck up my life and go in the gutter, then these laws are something I lean towards this, and then it kind of bumps me back. It's like, oh, as I become more self-aware. Correct. Then I'm saying, okay, I'm aware. Oh shit, I need to go back this way. But I don't need a God in any of this process. No. I don't need Jesus or Elohim or, Muhammad. Krishna, anything like that. I don't need any of these to steer my own life and take 100% responsibility for who I am in this time that I am here on this planet. I don't. So it's very empowering when you think of it that way. Yeah. That empowerment that you feel through thought, because thought precedes everything, that is what gives you the power for massive amounts of change and evolution. You do not need something outside of you to define you and help you evolve. You have all the power in you, all the part and parcel of creation inside of you through your spirit, feeding your entire system, feeding the power of your thoughts. A very deep, deep primal energy. So would atheism be right then? I would, well, because here, let me bring up the definition of atheism for everyone. Because I want to go to that extreme, and I don't think it's really necessarily extreme. And they're going to say they're based on science, which is a belief too. But so atheism is the broadest sense, in the broadest sense, is an absence of belief in the existence of deities.
So that's all you're saying. It's like, I don't believe in a deity. Okay.
A higher power.
Yeah, fine. Great. I don't believe in a deity. And then let's bring up the definition of deity.
Also look up, because
A deity or God or supernatural being considered divine or sacred. So they don't think that there are Yahwehs, which is obviously not true. They don't think that anybody can be more highly evolved than they are.
Because they're solely looking at evolution in a nihilistic way.
Yeah, it's just human right now. When it all ends, it's all over.
Yeah.
You know?
An atheist wouldn't believe in reincarnation or any of that stuff, probably.
Why? Reincarnation comes from the idea of deities, right?
Yeah.
Apparently in these religions. Well, there are gods. There have been gods that have walked around here.
But if I ask 90% of younger people, and we have a lot of younger people that listen to our podcast, if I ask 90% of younger people, they're going to say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual,
okay,
and I'm agnostic.
Great.
So what is agnostic?
Here we go.
Because agnostic's so vague.
Yep, agnostic, one who believes that it is impossible to know whether there is a God, which is a ridiculous, stupid, illogical statement.
Don't say you're agnostic.
No, one who believes that it's impossible. It's either, listen, everything is possible. And if you believe something's impossible, says you don't have the truth and you don't recognize the logic in possibility.
Because you don't have to believe in creation.
It is albeit possible, but highly improbable. There's a fine line between impossible and improbable, okay? And then when you coin the word belief, saying that I'm agnostic, I believe that it's impossible to know whether there is a God. Well, what we just told you what the word God is. You're saying it's impossible that someone could be more evolved from you in the entirety of this creation? Come on, don't be so small-minded. It's ridiculous. Be spiritual, be open, be logical, think things through.
And you don't, it's very simple when you say, you don't have to say, I believe in creation, because creation has billions of years behind it and actually an eternity of proof. I can look right now. I can look at you. I can look at it. I can go look at the tree outside right now. I can look at the soil.
Yes.
I can look at a rabbit that just hops by.
You kidding me?
Dude, the other day I was running on this is funny. I was running on the thing and I wasn't really paying attention because I had headphones in and I'm running up the hill here. And you know how they have in Albuquerque, everybody has brick. Like solid brick, a backyard to for their property or whatever. They're not fences. What would you call them? Like a brick?
They're like blocks.
Just blocks that are really high.
Cinder blocks.
Yeah, cinder blocks that go really high. But this one was at like my it was probably 6 feet because I'm like 6'2". So it was like right at my eye level. And all of a sudden, like I'm running real close to the wall. So there's probably 3 feet difference.
Or a dog?
No. It was a squirrel. But it like darted. There was a tree, so it was like it flew from the tree, and it looked like out of the corner of my eye that it was flying straight towards me, my face. But it actually flew from the tree and then hopped onto the little thing. But it did it perfect timing, right when I'm running.
Yeah.
So we intersected at perfect time, and I was looking at it, and it was looking at me.
Yeah.
And it had like those squirrel eyes,
It's God coming to smite you down. Yeah.
But it startled me. But even looking at that little evolved squirrel.
Mm-hmm.
It shows everywhere you go, like literally everywhere. So you don't have to believe in creation. Creation is.
It's around. You are. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's fucking obvious. Take the wax out of your ears. Take your horse blinders off.
So you don't have to say,
Wake up.
I'm a Christian. I believe in Muhammad. I'm agnostic. I'm atheist. I'm monotheistic.
Believe.
Yeah. None of that stuff. Throw all of that out the window.
Think for yourself. Find the power internally. Figure it out. Sit down and think about it.